let's begin.
This is the 5th time I've done a complete rewrite for a video on this topic. Maybe because even though I ended up writing 4 other videos, all I ended up doing was trying to rip this game a new asshole. What's weird is, I still log in and play almost on a daily basis. Maybe it's for about 30 minutes to a couple hours, but I'm still logging in and enjoying myself and feeling like I want to play this game. And even looking forward to playing it some more the next day. Okay, so the story feels pretty pointless, and my drive to play the game are usually fueled by my own motivations, rather than all the quests or grindy content they dropped in the game. And without even second-guessing it, I log in and do the usual shit I enjoy. Why am I even bothering with NGS when there are so many other cooler games I could be playing right now? Did I catch some kind of stupid disease?
Actually, I think we all just catch the optimism and hope for the future. And a dangerous disease to have, chat.
Latest SEGA update, I think I can finally give you a good answer. But it's not pretty. Just like today's sponsor, the creators that brought you inflatable tube balloons. I'm just kidding. I just needed something to break from the intro. Like and subscribe and kiss my nuts. Let's roll the video. The last time I was this confused to give a definite yes or no is when someone asked me, is liking Futanari actually gay? Now, for me to give a satisfactory answer, there are some things we gotta go over first. Because saying you should play New Genesis at the moment also makes me feel like I have an 8-ball of copium up my ass and it already hurts enough to lie. But saying you shouldn't play New Genesis wouldn't be exactly true either.
That's a more blunt way to put what I just said, but
I can't tell my parents about. I enjoy spending time with New Genesis. Even though I'm sure it would be pretty weird to explain my screenshot collection to my parents, and then trying to explain to people what this game even is, to those who don't even know it exists, is already kind of a headache. So in this video, I've decided to cram as much straight to the point information to share. For those of you wondering why the game is in the state it's in, or just wanting to add a couple more turds to your next PSO2 shit-talking conversation. A lot of my experience and how I'm evaluating PSO2 NGS comes from playing my fair share of character action games over my entire life. Games like Nier Automata, Astral Chain, old God of War games, Animal Soccer World, Devil May Cry. Recently just got into the Monster Hunter series early this year. And then I grew up on older games like Kingdom Hearts, Robotech, and probably my all-time favorite, Gotcha Force. I definitely want to make a video on that in the future. It's really just kind of a rough list to give you an idea of where I'm coming from when I'm trying to compare and understand if New Genesis is truly any good at all. Remember, New Genesis came from a franchise that already got a good working formula for a game concept. It's not that NGS has to reinvent the wheel that might have inspired it, and there's this sense that the ideas in this game aren't exactly terrible, but it also doesn't feel like a proper evolution. I guess this is the price you pay for releasing a game that should have stayed longer in the oven.
Yeah, cause let's be honest here. Cause I've been saying it for a while, and I think we all know this. If you played bait PSO2, the majority of the stuff we do in NGS is just slowly just bringing everything from bait PSO into NGS, just slower and with some tweak that don't make it as good. It's odd, but yeah, I really feel like we are still in that period, that bringing in new ideal fully and more just adapting old ideal because they need to move on from bait PSO, but not enough to get rid of everything.
Talk more about that. Let's start with this. PSO2 NGS is probably one of the best, worst, good, bad, fun games out there. What NGS does well is really great. And what it does bad kind of sucks cucumbers. It feels like they're struggling to understand what makes these open world games work in the first place. Just like a lot of ongoing players, it's been a love-hate relationship. So of course, I'm not the only one who feels...
Literally, my channel is like a mix of like, this sucks, but like, and this is how you hug a wappy and put boobs on your character. Like, that's literally what my channel is right now. Holy shit. So you're not wrong.
Like they want to see where this all goes in the future, even coming back from time to time. But I also hate it because it feels like someone tried to reverse fuck their idea of what a Phantasy Star game could be, while also not doing what the Phantasy Star online games already got right many years ago. So before I start warming up your entry into the video, It's time to throw a little bit of spice in this lube. Let's get organized and break this down into 3 over-dramatic title cards. Is this finally a fun Phantasy Star game? Yeah, sure, I'd say so. Does it feel like a Phantasy Star game? Not yet. To say if this is a good or a bad thing really depends on if the future updates are going to elevate the franchise. Because honestly, you could do whatever the fuck you want with a legacy IP as long as whatever comes out of it is a good game. Now you've got a situation where Sega half-assed their way into pushing this out into the public, and we're stuck with the choices that were made years ago. And because this wasn't a success or even a good game at launch, you've got the entire weight of the previous entries stepping all over New Genesis like a church pastor in a whorehouse. People don't forget that shit, especially your actual fan base who give you money in the first place. My gut tells me the directors are still trying to figure out how to make New Genesis an actual good game, and you can eventually feel it after playing enough. Sure, the actual gameplay and combat has evolved to fit more of the open environments, but they're kind of hardly doing anything new to really get the most out of all that space we have to play around in. This goes for both the combat and exploring these open environments. Why not actually make use of all this open space? Like, put large...
Oh my god, literally what I've been saying. The whole thing of just like, the thing that gonna annoy the fuck out of me is if literally the next like story update just leaving the planet. Like, you have all that, you got literally places that look like could be full dungeon. You have like tents and stuff in Alio where obviously NPC should be. You obviously got like all the distant city. You could build a reputation system by having NPC scattle around in each region to build up to like, I don't know, maybe like exclusive like elementals like themed weapons. So especially since they already set the elemental regions of like, hey, go build up reputation to get the item from each of the city, and then have like an interchangeable like weapon like lists that will affect depending on what you're fighting, so you can actually take advantage of the elemental stuff beyond being a mage. Just like literally what I've been talking about for the last like, God, ain't going back to the original quote beta of NGS, like the Japanese quote beta. Like, I've been saying this. In general, so empty and void. Yeah, because everything is just like stuck in, you know, just inside the cities. Which is like one of them whole thing, like, for example, that when like Kavalik came out, and they was all like, oh, Kavalik, nobody been here, you know, for however many, you know, decades or whatever it was, timeline. It was supposed to be like no one there except for like the robots. And then you get there and it's just like a dozen NPCs, and only some of them are from Alio, and some of them are like, oh yeah, I've been here. Like, what? No, you haven't. And just like, you know, just like, one of the other issues I have with NGS is just like, there is story plot and lore that just instantly get retconned after stating it, like constantly, and it's just like, why? We could literally just have like people from Alio gather about in Kavard, like they're making them way to it, because you know it's not just us, obviously, that, you know, call for sending to Kavaris. But just like having everything so funneled into the cities only, it just like really do give it that empty vibe, like once you leave the city. Like, don't get me wrong, I know we got them NPC that can show up doing like trial missions now, but, and have had them for like a couple months now. And then, you know, we have like our side story with like, oh, the main character is just like standing around out in the open. But at the same time, it's like, it just always character we know, and it not really like adding substance to the game. It always doing adding like a little bit of backstory to the characters that was already belly skin deep to begin with. But at the same time, it not like building out the environment to feel empty, building out it to feel like more like building to something, like actually feeling like the place is lived in at all. Just like literally you leave the city, and at that point it's like, oh, go to a battle sector, oh, go farm material, oh, go hunt dreads. Like you think about that, it's literally the loop as soon as you leave the city. Or go, you know, do a cocoon like once, get your skill point, and then we'll do it again. Because we have no real reason for you to do these again, technically. And up making them harder now doesn't add much to it. It just, anyway.
Jump pads here instead of those fucking floating tube elevators. Or what about using the photon stamina bar for playing around in these environments, like using mounts? The director said they're not going to add mounts to the game. Adding features like mounts that environment playing move faster than the regular photon dash will throw off the balance of the. What the fuck?
That right there is more known at. We're not going to add mount because we want you to buy random emote for wanting. Not realizing they can also sell mounts, but... Anyway.
What is he talking about? You're doing the same thing in NGS as you would do in any other open world game. Going from one enemy group to the next. How is NGS any more unique? So you want us to teleport everywhere instead? Is that really supposed to be more fun?
That's what they want.
You can turn these Ryuker towers into some kind of gas stations to make sure players aren't abusing the mounts or something, anything? Death Stranding has cars, and people joke about that game being called a walking simulator. Okay, well... What about being able to hold and charge your jump to get to higher places, rather than using the clunky wall jumping experience we have now? Even base PSO2 had a ton of player attacks that even let you get around the linear maps faster.
Yeah, they were literally called Movement PA, or what everybody nicknamed them, because that's what they are. They were literally abilities that were nothing more than, you know, movement. Like, yeah, you can use them to attack, but nobody used them to attack. Nobody used them to get around faster.
How did these not make it into New Genesis? Hell, if you just improve the enemy movesets, that would be a big enough difference right there. Just anything to make it feel like what I'm doing is getting the most fun out of all this.
Yeah, because it's literally the same animation for enemy.
As far as these region
because they're just a weekend.
You just gotta stop adding more regions to the game and just fill up the ones you already have with content that people want to.
What I've been saying.
It's not even that
literally what I've been saying.
Are bad themselves. I would consider these places to be really visually cool places to explore. Really, you're kind of doing a lot of the same shit in these regions. Why not improve the combat?
Like I have said, it literally, when we have talked about in-game at any point, it literally, PSO is the stuff you doing in the full, like, 10 hours of the game in Alio, or just pretty much Alio in general. Everything you're doing in Alio, you will be doing in Athea, you will be doing in Kavart, you will be doing in Retain. Like, the only real diss in here is like, oh, they, later on they added, you know, yellow and purple trigger. But you're still doing all of them also in the same area. So, literally, like, same context, put into a new skin, and that new content. Like,
platforming with all the cool things you could do with photon energy, instead of giving us new maps that are red, blue, and brown. So by the end of a year and a half of updates, this is the game that was planned. I mean, the content they have added does make sense for what they're trying to do, I guess. But I'm still having a hard time figuring out if this was an issue because of director choices or Sega not giving them any extra time to develop new mechanics. And
I'm personally with the whole, like, timeline. I'm still in the camp of a timeline, a budget thing, because it still feels very much like they were given a budget. No idea how much it would be, but either the budget was super low or the majority of the budget went to getting it working with bait PSO. So you can go in between on the fly, technically on the fly. Cause like literally, like no matter how good the quality of life stuff is we getting and going to be getting soon, the majority of the quality of life stuff is like, I don't know if this is just the whole thing of like, once again, time or budget or just trying to get something out there. So it looked like the game have, you know, updates, especially with how the schedule is for updating. But at the same time, which I'm hopefully this is changing with houses, since houses ended up getting pushed back to June, which I'm really hoping that's going to be the case. But the biggest thing I have noticed over the last couple of years with NGS is every time we have got like quality of life stuff, it not only should that stuff been out day one, which it wasn't, you know, better late than never type of deal. But the issue is like they come out, all the items, or all the quality of life stuff, is always feeling like they come out. And then, like, put an example of this. It's like, okay, we have music in bait PSO that you can play in your house. Let's add that to NGS so people can play the music in NGS. Fine. And then they give it the system for it, and then they give it a crap ton of music that you can get your hands on, not counting the ones you could get your hands on in base. But have it set up where it doesn't even show if you have the item with it, like you do for accessories. So you could buy music just will like you always had it. And once you are doing with like a playlist of a couple hundred songs, by the time you play in bait PSO as well, like probably more than a few hundred, and having no idea which one you have or have not without going through a giant list of songs and trying to memorize, and then being like, oh, okay, about like 9 months to a year later, we're going to add the ability where now you have a little symbol net letting you know it went to. Like, as an example of this, of just like, you put out quality of life, and then you put out quality of life to make the quality of life better, then put out quality of life to make the quality of life better, and just, you know, it always, once again, it like, I don't know if it's just like not thinking through, or is it more of like they put out content, quality of life content, a bare minimum, and then it'd be like, oh, we're gonna take another like 3 months to add like the extra tab in the settings. But we need stuff to put out an update. Put it out now. We do it in 3 months instead of just waiting 3 months and announcing it and putting it out. Like that's the thing here. Like no matter how good the quality of life stuff is, and honestly, probably one of the bigger highlights of PSO right now, which I get that say something, quality of life, your strong suit. But it like a lot of the stuff seemed like it planned out or not planned out and just kind of shoved in, or it planned out and just like cut up into chunks of very important updates that it just spread out over a couple months to make it look like, you know, there was, you know, reasonably, you know, content or update coming to the game. And that like my only issue with like the quality of life stuff. Any of some of it probably should have been out day one, which probably wasn't because money. But that one thing I really wish SEGA would hopefully stop on. Cause like, don't get me wrong, if you put out like something and, you know, like for example being like the auto sell function, you know, you put something in the game, you just think about it, and then later down the line you hear players talking about like, hey, it'd be nice if we could do that, and be like, that is a good point, that would probably be useful, let's do that. Like, if one thing. But at all, like, you know, for example, that also would have been like the whole etchy items, you know, being able to use, or the etchy ticket, using items. Because before, you know, we had to use one item at a time. So if you had like 10 etchy tickets, you gotta do one at a time. And then literally like a couple months later, they added like, oh, you can use multiple now. Like, how was that not thought about to begin with? Especially since other item we can use multiple times. Why isn't it one distant? And it just like, I don't know, it's like super incompetence, or is it literally gutted in half for update content reason?
New interactive experiences. It's not like the new Genesis directors and staff can publicly punch upward anyways. It's just when your game starts to stink like shit and everyone can smell it, we're all kind of wondering where it's coming from. And by what I can tell so far, SEGA is farting the loudest. Long-term game development is incredibly tough. When you're working on something for 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 years, you can't underestimate how incredibly complicated this entire process is. Especially when you're trying to develop an open world game. You need an actual friggin' crystal ball, an army of computer jockeys, and if you're lucky, you get game directors who actually enjoy playing video games and don't have their heads up their own ego-inflated assholes. Game development is a marathon, not a fucking Chris Chan shopping spree speed run. When your business relies on making first impressions really good, you would think as an official AAA publisher, they would, you know, kind of get that's their job, to make sure that their reputations of their products don't get fucked over. And it really wasn't about the launch of the game that scorned everyone. But it was the launch of an actually unfinished game, and acted like it wasn't any different. Meaning, even if they had completed 80% of their game they had to release with, they still had to develop new and upcoming content the same exact time they were trying to fix all of the shit they just launched with what seems like having no grace period of even having time for polish. And yeah, it was technically playable when it came out, but also it technically launched with a fuck ton of server issues that lasted for months and barely had any content, and makes my CPU run harder than Forrest Gump wearing Goku's train.
Yeah, what they would also know a good point of just like, well, I have talked about like, reputation matter a lot here, especially for a new Genesis, with how big and how hype NGS was leading up in the anime, oh not anime, but like the MMO or in general, like content creation wise. Because I've seen so many content creators that, all like the 30, 40,000 plus, multi-million views, Andes being excited for NGS. And then it came out, and the way it came out just killed all that momentum. And then not helping that, it also hoarded with the whole Dreamer mode up and the stuff they tried to do with sponsorship, which, also didn't help. But, like, literally, yeah, like, server issues is a problem, obviously. Like, every game have it. It doesn't matter. If it's an all-way online game, it's always going to be shit for the first few days. But the biggest diss in here is how you handle the fallout and how quickly and how well you communicate with what is happening and getting it worked out. Any of it did take, like, a couple weeks to get worked out. Like, some better communicating, some better thought would have been more helpful. But once again, that probably come back to play in, the whole, SEGA and US and that whole issue. But it really felt like, in so many ways, on purpose or not, that they just dragged their feet so hard to the point that any now, like, don't get me wrong, the PS4 launch went so much better, thank God. Like, don't get me wrong, if there were dumb decisions such as only having, like, 4 blocks when you have, a console that has, like, 80 million units, and probably 1% of that is, like, 20 million or something or whatever. Maths is not mathing right now. But either way, a shit ton of people. And affecting, like, oh, we got 2 blocks that maybe hold, like, 300 people, maybe. We thought that was a good idea. Like, don't get me wrong, they gotta fit fast. But we thought that was a good idea. But nonetheless, it's like, yeah, literally, I remember, like, watching, like, the biggest disappointment of the launch was literally watching all the hype, all this, all that reputation that was built up thanks to bait PSO, and how it literally will right there on the cups, becoming, a game that could easily probably get like 100K, viewership on Twitch, a couple million on YouTube, and just seeing them like squander it, like so fat to the point that everybody just written it off, and for the longest time, that, like, example of that, for the longest time on Twitch is like, there were maybe like 10 people watching NGS, and then over on YouTube there were like maybe 5, 6 of us making content about it. A triple A SEGA game, like, that is, as old, if not older than Sonic. It's just like, and, it's like one of the bigger pillars of RPGs, right next to like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. And it's just like, oh. That's still probably, like, the saddest moment I think I ever felt for a launch of a game. But literally just watching Sega literally just squander all of that was built up to that. Which in return could have been a money thing, could have been, once again, just Japan not wanting to communicate. Cause, let's be honest, Japan companies are not the best when it comes to that to begin with. And it just get any worse when your game is a live server game or MMO. It's like, but yeah.
I just get more pissed off at Sega for basically shitting upwards an unfinished rocket into outer space and making the new Genesis crew deal with the consequences. The very first thing that Sega should have done with New Genesis is actually grow some balls and brand it as an early access game. It would have...
I've been saying it too. My God, if you see that video, dude, I 100% agree. I've been saying this as well. Because Elite with bait PSO, they technically did that. Because they like, hey, he'll quote beta, he'll open beta. And they were like, hey, this is open beta. And open beta just rolled into launch, and it launched for like, what, 2 months later? And like, if they would have said early access, that would have set the tone for the game. And so much good grace it would have come from it. Like, let's be honest, any to this day, yeah, we will probably still be in, if they did put early access on it, we probably still be in early access to late June of next year, or this year. I got this year now, 2023 chat. What am I saying? But it would be probably early access up to that point. And that would honestly just like, any of it didn't really mean much to Sega. It's still just like setting the tone of what this game is. Because, I'll be honest, it technically is early access.
really set the stage for what we actually got instead of an attempt at basically what felt like a false advertisement of a game.
Yeah, because they were trying.
Are you really gonna?
Because by them like putting it out, and like they were like, "Oh, this is on par with every other MMO." Wow, Final Fantasy 14. No, it's not.
Tell me that the 1.0 version of NGS could have been a standalone product. Sega gave birth to New Genesis, tossed it under a bus, and let it roll downhill just to see what happens. Like Miyamoto once said, a delayed YouTube video is eventually good, but a rushed YouTube video is forever bad. See what I did there? When PSO2 launched globally in April 2020, Sega then pushed out all of its 8 to 9 years of development in Japan and busted its entire nut globally, then to release New Genesis 1 year later in June 2021. Why didn't you guys spread those base PSO2 updates for another 2 or 3 years to give yourself some extra development time for New Genesis?
Japan and the
Japanese version of PSO2 that launched in 2012 had to basically wait an excruciating 8+ years to get all of their updates. And then on top of that, imagine being a Japanese player and then New Genesis finally releases in the state it was in. Ultimately, Sega shat this game out like someone blew up a septic tank in a trailer park. So, for the people who are interested in checking out New Genesis, the reason I'm giving you a bigger picture of what's going on here than just nitpicking all of the little issues, I'd rather show you the entire context as to why New Genesis has been trying to recover from the mess it was born in. The content that's available is probably enough for established players, but for new players looking in, it probably looks pretty ugly. Even if the game is free to play, so is YouTube. And that Cybervolt video ain't getting any less views. As a side note, I know I'm taking another huge dump on Sega, but without them, we still wouldn't have the Phantasy Star series to enjoy. Somebody, please, buy this franchise. Even though it seems like on the outside they make some dumb short-term business decisions, all I want for them is to treat their IPs with the same level of respect that the fans have for their games. Although I don't agree with the choices the directors made for these big updates we got, there is something inside of me that still wishes people could give this game a fair shot now. So it makes you wonder, right? Why might people still be playing PSO2 NGS then? So this is the part where I'll give them some well-deserved credit. One of the things that really kind of saved this game is the fact that you can transfer and use your cosmetics goods between both games. Keep in mind, you're gonna have to go play the old PSO2 to get a lot of that cool last-gen shit. And it's even kind of harder now that the old market is worse than whatever the fuck is going on in China. But in that process, you'll start building up your wardrobe and making a variety of characters you'll be playing as over time. Plus, they're bringing a lot of those older cosmetics back into New Genesis and remaking some of the more popular outfits from PSO2 into New Genesis. Even though some of the newer clothing is kind of busted, what are you guys doing with that hip slider? You know that shit has looked weird for like a year and a half now, right? But what you can do in Salon seems to kind of outshine all of that bullshit I was just complaining about. Arguably, PSO2 NGS still has one of the best MMO character creators out there. And for a game that has a ton of its strength on being a pretty social experience, you can see why this is such a big contributor helping this game stay alive. For someone like myself who plays this game on average, it's incredibly easy to spend a couple of hours in Salon fine-tuning your character's looks, changing your body shape to play as an old man or a cool sword guy, or like a 1,000-year-old girl, moving accessories around like cosmetic Legos to see what kind of new outfit parts you can come up with, and being able to change your character's body language make for a pretty fun fashion toy box. And sure, it isn't perfect.
One day,
but
hopefully, see
what it's allowed me to do.
Hopefully.
So, yeah, it still feels like the combat abilities still need a bit more content, but being able to bring two weapons together and slap a weapon camo on it can let you do some pretty interesting things. Truthfully, it still maintains feeling like a fully online character action game, even if it only has half the player moveset of a 10-year-old game. And although the SEGA update is just kind of more of the same that we've gotten over all the updates,
it's beginning
to feel like there are finally enough long-term class goals to be a somewhat worthwhile grinding experience. There are probably enough skills to unlock that are available now that let you play with a good enough starting kit for the weapons to mix and match your playstyles. Oh yeah, also people use it as a screenshot game, if that's something you might be into. So, is Phantasy Star
a lot of people do.
Online 2 New Genesis worth playing? Probably. The newer players are probably going to have a much more enjoyable experience than the returning players. But as a returning player myself, I'm beginning to feel a drive again to go out and keep fighting stuff. And I'll be honest again. Right now, you could probably jump in and play through the content while enjoying the process of making your characters, but over time, you'll begin to see that there's still a ton of growing room for this game and what it could offer. I don't expect people to play the game the same way I do.
I like the reason why, like, when someone come in asking if they need to play it. The answer is yes. It's just like, you know, setting that ideal of like, no, you will eventually hit a wall, and it's okay to walk away. Well, this is your job. Please go watch my Final Fantasy 11 video, chat.
To enjoy it, but there's always something kind of special about the Phantasy Star series. It seems to always try and bring people together who like and love character action games. And even though New Genesis has been a pretty rocky experience so far, who knows, maybe being a part of this entire process with the people who keep coming back might be something worth checking out after all. I mean, give me a fucking break. I'm trying my best here. I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude with the pink shirt. I'm just a dude with the pink shirt and a bunch of opinions trying to get people to join in on the same fun I'm having. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This one has been an absolute bitch to write. Man, I was really awaiting a long ass time to see if that Stia update was going to make or break the game.
It's so easy to just go into Wants.
Copium bump was seeing the new stuff we're going to be able to do with the new creative spaces next year. Again, thanks for watching the entire thing. If you made it to the end, I appreciate everyone who likes and subscribes and comments down below. I think it's awesome everyone is helping me reach 500 subs, so thank you for that. But I'll still be making PSO2 videos in the future. I'm pretty excited to start talking about other games as well, like Animal Soccer World.
If you're making one wrong move, I will eat you. You old dictator.
Are you a cat?
Oh God, Josh. Hang on, Josh. No. No. Go back, go back, go back. There we go. There we go, chat. 100% agree with this. And also, chat, you guys probably should go give him some love. Go give him some love, chat. If you haven't already, here you go. I agree, like, 100% with it. Like, there were multiple things in that video I've been saying for years, which you all have heard me bicker and moan about for the last, like, what, almost 3 years something. Maybe longer if you've been here since 2020 when we started PSO. But, nonetheless, 100% with them, and they're correct about it. Like, man, it's like, maybe it did a copium or something. I don't know, just like that whole, like, seeing deep down in PSO is great. It's just seeing it get trashed through the mud, though, but nonetheless, I was saying, like, hopefully a Thea will be the answer to it, and the only real diss in a Thea right now is it more, like, zoned off areas, less open world, so maybe a little less needing to shove, you know, stuff into it to actually make the game feel long-term fulfilling, and if they probably should, but still, it might be, you know, a way out for them, but nonetheless, PSO to everybody. PSO, everyone. Make sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. Want my Final Fantasy 11 video, please. Please.